Billy, there's a lot of Red Wing podcasts out there nowadays, but not are as well known and respected as the one that we have with us today. Joining is the host and producer of the Grindline podcast, Greg. Welcome on in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You're setting an unrealistically high bar for me. That is just that's an intro, man. Yeah, how you guys doing?
Doing good, doing good. You and I actually go back a little bit.
Way back.
We used to work together quite some time ago, and I already knew that you're a Wings fan. And then things have just kind of crossed paths again with both of us having the shared interest. It seems.
Yeah, man. Small world. From the Target days all the way to online personalities. It's
You
quite
know,
a whirlwind tour.
you had two people that worked in Target Electronics. Of course, they were going to be on a podcast one day. So
Absolutely.
okay, but today we're actually going to be diving into some season predictions in the format of some over-unders. But first, for anyone who does not know Greg, we are going to give Greg the opportunity to kind of introduce themselves in the sense of where their mindset is at for the Red Wings offseason. So it could be about their draft or their free agency. So Greg, what is your general thoughts on Steve's decision-making since the season has ended through today?
Yeah, Steve, if you listen to other podcast stuff, Steve's gotten a lot of crap from other fan bases, basically. I'm set. Yeah, a lot. It's been Sabres and it's been Sabres
Yep.
fans, it's been Sens fans, everything. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the draft I thought it was okay. I feel like a lot of the picks were safe. I love the Sandy Pelika pick. It's probably my favorite of the draft. Doesn't bother me where we took Nate Danielson. I think if you took those players in the first round and you removed what number they were picked at, you got your value, because I think Sand and Pelika could have went where Danielson went. Danielson could have went where Pelika went. It's a wash there. There was only one pick that really confused me, Brady Cleveland. That pick was weird. Love the Trey Augustine pickup as a future goalie.
Yes.
So I like the draft was good. Free agency scared me
Oh, yeah.
until
Yes.
the Debrincat trade.
That's
Oh my
exactly
God,
where we
same
were
boat.
at.
So what we had said initially was like, if you go this far and you do all of this stuff and you don't get Debrincat, you've improved your team, but you're not pushing for the playoffs unless you've got that pure goal scorer, that elite shooting talent. And when they got Debrincat, it was like, yes, now everything that happened makes sense.
Yep.
So it's exciting. I think we've said this is the most optimistic and the most excited we've been for a season in a very long time. Like, we started our podcast when the team started going downhill, and it's been depression.
There hasn't been a
Until
lot.
like now, no, and now we're like the roller coaster's heading back to the top. So I think we're approaching it. I have high hopes and high aspirations for the team for this season, and it's all positively optimistic. And I don't think it's like crazy pie in the sky, rose-colored glasses. I think it's like a lot of realism this time.
Yeah, from the sounds of it, it sounds like we're just about in the same boat. Exactly.
We should be.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a smart Red Wings fan, you're here with us, right? But no, like overall, I think, yeah, the offseason, it was very scary seeing like the Hall signing without looking more into him. That was the big thing that Josh and I have gone through, is as soon as you start looking at these players, and maybe it's not like their immediate stats of goals and assists, but you start to watch them play, you see what their role was, you see what they could add to your special teams and everything like that, and you're like, oh, all of these guys are really starting to add up to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That you're building like a very well-rounded roster.
Yeah, we compared it to how Vegas built their team. If you
Yes.
go look at Vegas's roster, they're sure, yeah, Mark Stone and Jack Eichel, but they had scoring on every line. They had depth. They had guys in the position that you could slot up a line or slot up two lines, and you're not going to hurt your team.
Yep.
So the team has more depth than they've had in a very long time, which is what's exciting. Special teams should take off. PK should be just as good, if not better. And even like Reimer improves goaltending. So step by step, Steve made these little moves, and people will say, well, you paid, like you said, Hull. I think Hull gets too much crap because Toronto media is terrible and the fan base mirrors it and can be even worse.
He also had a
Like,
different role there too. There's a much
sure,
higher expectation of what he was supposed to do for the team, whereas here, he's being slotted down to at least the second line D minimum.
Well, if you look at his performance in the regular season versus the playoffs, it's night and day. He was not good in the playoffs, but he was a good regular season player. And you take the stress off of him from being in the Toronto market, and you bring him here and you give him a lesser role, and you just tell him play defensive hockey, and pair him with Ghost, and you're probably fine.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what he can do for us. I have taken away my doubting of Steve Yzerman in evaluating, defensive talent when we got Mata. I did not like the Mata signing. When we first did it, I was like, I've watched him play enough. I don't feel comfortable with him being on our team, and he comes here, gets a new opportunity, plays a lesser role, excels.
I mean, you can even look at Jake Wallman. You pick him and you go, who's Jake Wallman? And now he's like a top line stud defenseman doing the gritty out there, scoring goals.
Who
Best
saw that
friends
coming?
with Mo Seider. Like, I've always said, and even lately, that I will trust Steve Yzerman until Steve Yzerman gives me a reason not to. Until the misses overtake the hits, and he's got a lot of back catalog of hits, so he's gonna have to have a few misses in order for me to start doubting him.
It got to the point where, just like you said, where before the Debrincat trade, I was definitely at the point. We had a video that had touched on this, where I'm not at the point where I'm doubting Yzerman, but I am now at the point, and this is again not now, but at the time between Debrincat and the free agency, I'm now at the point where I'm no longer in blind trust mode. I'm kind of analyzing a little bit more. I'm kind of looking a little bit deeper into it, because initial reactions on the Hall signing, I'm guilty. Initial reaction was, what is this? Like, this is not what I was thinking we were going to be doing in the offseason. And then, of course, we spent weeks just diving into every possible scenario, why he would want, because, when you've got someone like Yzerman, there's more thought going into it than what most people are going to give credit for. So it's really a job of trying to see what Steve saw. And I think it didn't take that long before we saw what Steve saw. And then the Debrincat move happened, where the deal was better than all of our predictions. Anything we thought was going to happen, we were throwing out names, possible losses like Berggren or Edvinsson. Like, those were all the ones we were scared to lose. Like, man, this would really suck to move something like that. And then we saw the deal, and it's like, just do whatever you want with this team. I trust you. Just keep doing it. I will stop. Just keep going.
Yeah, I think Yzerman knew from the beginning, before free agency, because he had said that he had talked to the Senators before the draft. He said before the draft we had conversations, and then we went past draft into free agency. They basically knew from before the draft that they were going to get it. So all of free agency, it was all planned out meticulously. And Yzerman he's an absolute wizard. And it's like I said, it's like if you're looking at best GMs in the league, and Yzerman and Sakic got to be up there 1 and 2.
Going back to the late 90s, talking about the best center in the league, and now you're talking about the best GM. They never go away.
These are the off seasons they're going to look back on when they're making the Stanley Cup DVD, or it probably won't even be a DVD by then. But when they're making the Stanley Cup run video,
the VR video,
the VR experience where you're there in the negotiation room. These are the moves, and these are the off seasons that they're going to look back on. So it's cool to recognize that. Speaking of Debrincat, that actually takes us into our first over/under, so we can jump right into it. This feels like probably the most common question that keeps getting brought up, and as you mentioned, you're bringing up the commentary from other teams' fans, and I'm sure you've heard what we've been hearing. Debrincat will be nothing and has been nothing since playing with Patrick Kane. So I'm so glad that all these fans know so much more about these players than these GMs do. So with that in mind, a very simple question of Debrincat's total goals in his first year as a Red Wing set to 33.5, with his last year being 27 on Ottawa. But in this situation, he would be assumingly top line with Dylan Larkin, probably getting more scoring opportunities than he was on Ottawa. He had 27 last year in Ottawa. We put the over under at 33.5. Greg, you're the guest. If you want to take the first one, feel free.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over. I mean, so if you're looking at his line, he was playing mostly, I believe, with Shane Pinto and with Drake Batherson, I believe, in Ottawa. He also played with Claude Giroux a bit. Claude Giroux is a good setup guy. But Dylan Larkin, what people tend to forget is Dylan Larkin is a playmaker first. He scores because he can. He makes plays because that's what he's very, very good at. Alex Debrincat didn't want to be in Ottawa. That he proved that in both his statements about it and his play on the ice. So I would say I'm going to take the over. I have him again. I'm going to pencil him between 35 and 40 in that range. I think also depends on who they put on that top line with him, whether it's Lucas Raymond, whether it's David Perron, whether it's Michael Rasmussen. There are many possibilities to throw up on that top line. but he wants to be here. He's in a more familiar situation. He's with his family. There was in just something quick. We had someone reach out to us on Twitter because I had brought up like maybe there's some psychology Yzerman's bringing in these Michigan people. Maybe there's some psychology behind it, or maybe if you play where you grew up playing, maybe it's more familiar. Maybe your game grows. And they said there were tests done on scuba divers where they would have them like look at a set of stuff under or do a task underwater and then try to have them repeat that task above water and underwater, and they always performed it better underwater. So maybe it's some kind of psychological thing where if you're playing at home or you're playing where you learned how to play and grew up playing, that maybe you perform better.
Overall morale too, just being around, just that and being around, you have a higher chance of being around friends and family more consistently. Stuff like that. I just wanted, before I throw it to Billy, you said that Larkin scores because he can. Larkin scores because he had to too. That's the other one. He was like the guy. He didn't have a choice. It was him or not much else.
Who else is gonna do it?
Yeah, exactly. So I agree that he used to be a playmaker first. Billy, 33.5 for Debrincat. What did we take?
I am also going to take the over for just about every season or every reason that Greg already mentioned. I have my little notes over on the side. Number one was playing where you want to be, playing where you're home, playing where people want you. And to add on to what Greg said, like even Claude Giroux gave a little bit of insight in that he talked to Debrincat about staying in Ottawa. And he just knew, like, I'm just talking to him. He doesn't want to be here. And I think Claude Giroux really kind of got along with that because he went home to Ottawa. He was off in Philly. He went to Florida. He could have gone and stayed with Florida again, but he wanted to go home. So I think he respected the decision to do that. And we've already seen how great of a goal scorer this guy is just in general. I think pairing him, again, with someone like Larkin who can finally not be paired with Bertuzzi, pairing him with a true goal scorer, he's never, I would say, late in his career had anything like that. So I think Debrincat's absolutely going to thrive off that.
And the perfect segue into our second over-under, we brought up the Dylan Larkin being such a big playmaker. We do want to jump over to Larkin's playmaking projection for the year. So same concept, except with assists for Larkin. He was actually first on the team last year with 47. And with the increased opportunity and likely less falling on him as a goal scorer, we set his over-under on assists for the year at 54.5. Billy, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I'm going to take the over. And if he does break this is going to put him, if the stats stay the same as last year, he would be 20th in assists. He would be right between Malkin and Barkov. And I think that that's not an incredibly unrealistic expectation for him. He's continuously made all the players around him better, whether that's Fabry, Perron, Raymond, Bertuzzi. And he continues to get better each year. He's developing that two-way game. If you can take the weight of scoring off of him and put it onto someone else, I think it's going to open up his game a ton. Yeah, I have him breaking the 55 assists this year.
Greg?
Yeah, I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to take the over as well, mostly for the reason that he does have a pure goal scorer now, but secondly, because I'm expecting Lucas Raymond to take a next step. Lucas Raymond, I have him down, I think, as a 30 goal, 40 assist guy. And I think he can have a 70-point season. I think he's totally going to break out. The slump, I think he just needed to put on more weight, learn how to be more elusive in the corners, and get that shot off because he does have that shot. He has that offensive instinct. So I think 55 is probably right, probably around the area. If he does that, 55 assists, 30 goals, I mean, you're looking at over a point per game player in Larkin, and I think Larkin can absolutely be a 90-plus point player this season. So I'm going to take the over too.
Okay, and just a quick call. If you guys are familiar with our videos, we interact with pretty much every comment that pops in these videos. I'll give you guys two options down in the comments. You can either answer all of our over-unders, if you can play along with us, or if you want, go down there and toss an over-under for yourself that we can answer. So if you have something that you think would be a good question to add to the conversation, feel free to toss that down there, and we can each individually go down there. And who knows, maybe Greg will make a guest appearance in the comments and answer one or two. We'll see. But go ahead and toss those down there. We'll keep the conversation going. So you brought up Raymond. So it's all, do you have my note sheet? Because I feel like Greg keeps feeding me segues. It's delicious right now. But speaking of Raymond, and I'm hearing you kind of answer. I already know what your answer is going to be, so I'll let you answer this. You're definitely more optimistic on Raymond's production next year than we were, so I'm going to let you kick it off. We have Raymond's goals set after having a 17-goal season last year, which I know he missed some games. He was fourth on the team with 17 goals last year, so we have him at an improved year, but not a breakout year at 23.5.
So Yeah, I'll take the over on 23.5. And I think it goes a couple ways. So if he's on the first line with Debrincat and Larkin, Yzerman made the point to say that Debrincat is not just a goal scorer. He compared him to some pretty high power, pretty famous playmakers. And saying that Debrincat can drive play as well as score. And if you've got Debrincat on that top line with Raymond and Larkin, I think Raymond's numbers naturally go up in both assists and points and goals. But if you have him on that second line, you've also improved your second line. So if he's on a second line with someone like a JT Compher and a David Perron, or like a Compher and a Rasmussen, or a Compher and a Kopp, if you slide Kopp over to wing, you're giving Raymond even more firepower on that second line as well. So I think either way you look at it, whether he's on that elite top line or he's on a second line, which is better than last season, his numbers are going to go up even more. More special teams time. So I guess it depends on what you would consider a breakout. But like I said, I think he could totally do a 30-goal season. His first season, he had 23 goals and 34 assists for 57 points. I'm pushing him towards 70. I don't think 13 more points in his first season is unrealistic with how much this team has improved. Now, you could say that I think Lalonde has come in and said, I am forcing a more defensive system into this team. All forwards need to know how to play defense, which might be a little harder for Debrincat as well.
Yep.
But Raymond's putting on that weight. I saw the videos of him at Lions training camp. He looks physically bigger, physically stronger.
Yes,
so I'm excited for that. He's on the Joe Valeno Get Swole program. And I expect 30 goals. I don't expect, but I think 30 goals is absolutely achievable for Lucas Raymond.
I would agree with that it's achievable, but I am going to take the under.
We also haven't projected, just to kind of narrow what our over under was kind of based on. I think when we projected lines, we had we believed he'd be on the second line. So that's probably where the lack of a belief of 30 goals is coming from. I don't think he would hit 30 on line 2, but
yeah, because I have it where I believe he's going to go onto the second line, and I'm hoping that someone like Berggren can go up there with him, more of like the playmaker style, and that can really, again, what we're saying with Larkin and Debrincat, hopefully you can get out of two very young players in Berggren and Raymond. But I am very happy with him at the age of 21. If he can get 20 to 23 goals again, which is kind of where I would expect him to be. Like 30 is achievable, there's no doubt about that. But where I would expect it out of him is there. And if he can finish his first 3 seasons of the NHL, entering at the age of 19, and he can average 20 goals a year, I think that is a very solid achievement. Moving him down the lineup, I think, is going to relieve that pressure that we've put on him from like putting a 19-year-old in the NHL on one of the worst teams on the top line and say, go score, and they put up 23 for you is really, really good. I was very happy with. So I want to just try to keep that level in my head that like he could bounce between those two lines. I think he is going to get power play time, but I would anticipate Debrincat's going to be the primary option on there. But I love that we used Raymond down low. Kubalik, a couple times it burned us where Kubalik stopped shooting and Kubalik kept looking for the backdoor pass. Raymond missed a couple. Raymond got a couple, so I would like him to improve on that part of his game. Yeah, I, in general, just expect more goal scoring throughout the entire lineup, so maybe the playing time on the second line for our team versus most teams would also hinder him a little bit in the goal scoring efforts.
Yeah, I think the only point I'd really want to hammer home is the age. I think Red Wings fans are so used to the let them cook in the AHL, let them cook in Grand Rapids for so long that we're used to by the time they get called up, production by year 2, would be by year 2 or 3 would be you hope they're really hitting their stride. He came in at such a young age that it's totally reasonable that he would need a few years. He jumping straight into the NHL. I'm pretty patient with Raymond. I don't feel like I need to see that, hitting his peak, not peak, but hitting that that high end 30 goal mark next season. Or I would even argue I wouldn't even be that upset if he was still in the mid to low 20s in the following season, just given how early in his career he jumped straight to the NHL level. I'm already super impressed with the numbers he has put up at his age. Greg, I know you're going to say something.
Yeah, if you look at his time on ice with different players, he played mostly with Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp. 546 minutes with Larkin, 341 with Kopp. But his next forward partner with the highest minutes was Pius Suter with 215. So if you replace a Pius Suter, those Pius Suter minutes with like a JT Compher, that's going to be even better for him. So I think you're putting some more offensive players around him that can set him up better, that can give him a little bit more space to get his shot off, to sneak in and maybe bury a shot from in front of the net, even though he's normally better at the bumper. But I think that you're putting more around him to give him a better chance at the offense. He just has to do it. And I think with how bigger he got from what we can see, I think there's going to be more power to it, more power behind the shot, more power to move people out of the way.
Yeah. And to that about getting bigger and better, the person that I saw that happen with the most was actually, I know he's gone, but it was Zadina from his first year to his second year. He looked like a completely different player just on his legs, and you saw him get better. Not good enough, but if Raymond can again put on that weight, produce the similar result just on his body, yeah, I could see a very good season out of him.
Speaking of potentially setting up Raymond, we'll move on to our next over under. Now here on this channel, we are pretty high on Jonathan Berg. We have a lot of high hopes for this kid. We've watched, we've basically sat together and watched just about every minute we could find that was available on the internet, and we see a lot of great things in him that I know we're going to get to talk about in a second here. But our next one is going to be the over-under on Berggren's assists going into next year as a playmaker. He was 12th on the team with only 13 last year. We even think that the over-under we try to keep it what would be publicly realistic, but I know we're pretty optimistic that he's going to greatly surpass it. But we have it at 24.5 on his assist numbers going into next year. I know that we took the over because we are and everybody, no one's going to be surprised by that if this is not your first time here. We've mentioned him with high regards in almost every video. I would love to hear, not just actually, Greg, I don't think I've heard your opinion on Berggren in general. So if you want to take the over under on that, and then also just give your thoughts on Berggren in general.
Yeah, I love Yanni Bergers. He is a fantastic. Okay, he's a fantastic hockey player. And we were all we're kind of bummed when he got those back injuries in Grand Rapids and overseas. And then he comes in and he's awesome. He's fantastic. He's amazing. He's elusive. His passes are phenomenal. I've seen flashes of Pavel Datsyuk in Berggren at times. But
we've had this exact comparison where it's his ability to enter. Like when you watch him, you see so many players his age enter the zone and then I don't want to say panic. I don't want to disrespect at that level that they're panicking, but they're looking for the first, but they're looking for that first option. Like, and Berggren has that ability to slow the play down and to bring everything down to his speed and then proceed. And that is exactly what it reminded us of with Pavel Datsyuk. I'm so glad we're on the same page there.
Yeah. So last season, 13 assists, 15 goals for 28 points in 67 games played. If he gets a full season, I would probably take. It's hard. So I've got him in my bottom 6 right now, only because of wiggle room in the roster. But he is going to be playing with high-end finishers like Daniel Sprong. He's going to be playing with high-end finishers like people don't realize, if you go look at Jay Fresh's war cards, Klim Kostin is a phenomenal finisher.
Yes.
His finishing percentage is insanely high. His goals per 60 is insanely high. Yzerman has said he's going to come in and get a bigger opportunity. And if you're feeding a guy that can finish, your assists are going to go up. So doing that, maybe playing him with a David Perron, who's also scoring goals. I think that it'll go. And if Fabry's another one. Fabry has a full season that's healthy. He's a goal scorer.
Cross your fingers. Please.
Yeah, naturally, Berggren's number should go up. To go up over 12 assists, I mean, on an 82 game schedule, sure. Give me the over. I'm gonna go all overs tonight, I guess. How
many games did he play last year?
He played 67.
Then, especially if he stayed healthy, I feel pretty confident in the 24.5, and I would hope
he
25. All right, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. I'll take it.
So I'm also taking the over here, but I do recognize that there is a lot of competition throughout this entire roster. Rasmussen can find his way all around it. Like you just said, Kostin can find his way up it. Fabry, I have no idea where he's going to go. If he's healthy, is he going to be down on a third line? Could he?
I've got him as my 4th line center right now, only because Joe Veleno doesn't have a contract.
Yes. I have Joe Veleno.
I believe we left him off ours as well.
I have Joe Veleno out of the roster for other reasons, but that is a very good reason at the same time. I could see Rasmussen finding his way up, Kostin finding his way up, and then suddenly you're looking at Johnny Berger's on third, maybe fourth line if like Sprong's playing really well with someone else. And yeah, it's just a very competitive roster, but I just have a lot of hope. And I've just seen that vision. It was kind of like the finding the diamond in the rough. When everything else is going wrong, you're trying to look for that one spark. And it just felt like every night he was supplying it.
So just like with Lucas Raymond, if you look at time on ice with other players for Berggren, he had 430 minutes. His top partner was Joe Veleno.
I know.
His second was Austin Czarnik with 168 minutes. That's his 5-on-5 time. So it's literally Veleno and Czarnik were his highest partners. Andrew Kopp and David Perron were the other with 147 and 117. So if you get him more time with, like you said, with Kostin, with Sprong, with guys who are known for finishing and putting the puck in the net, his assists are naturally going to go up.
Yep. I really believe in him. It's probably my most, I guess, out of this world hope for a player on this team is Johnny Berger's. We put out a poll today on what 4 young Red Wings. It was Edvinsson, Berggren, Raymond, and Mo. And it's surprising because I don't think we're alone in this. A lot of people were picking Berggren along with Mo Seider. They were both up there around like the 30%. Yeah, there's a lot of hope and expectation on him as well. Kind of goes for, I guess, the whole team.
Billy made the joke that we're worried that with how much we've given the high praise in Berggren on this channel, we're worried that we just gave that poll to an echo chamber of how much we have just been pumping up Berggren for weeks now.
Well, I think the other thing too is that I believe Berggren is the last like roster player from the Ken Holland era because he was drafted in 2018 and Zadina just went to the Sharks. So I believe he's the last one too. So Yzerman believes in him enough to not throw out Ken Holland garbage in Berggren. So
right.
Thank you, Kenny. Hopefully this guy just ends up being like the next Datsuk for us, and we can just
if we don't have
him.
like him in a year, Ken Holland will trade for him. So
oh yeah.
All right, we'll jump into the next one, but we're about halfway through the ones that we've got. So we'll take the opportunity to toss this over. Greg, you said you brought one for us.
I do. So I believe it is since the 16-17 or 17-18 season, the Detroit Red Wings have lost the most man games to injury.
Oh no.
So this last season, the Red Wings lost 377 man games to injury. I am setting the over-under of man games lost to 275 man games lost to injury. Now, I will tell you that would put us between the Nashville Predators at 266 and the New Jersey Devils at 200, the Carolina Hurricanes at 253.
What did you say we ranked?
Injury.
Or what did we have last year?
We had 377. Now remember that that it was Robbie Fabry was out for a long time, and Jacob Verana was also out for like the whole season. So.
Okay. Yeah,
that's true. Man games lost to injury, over under 275.
That's a big number still.
Yeah.
And it's one of those you don't have too much control over by any means. And I'm just going to try to use what information is available in my mind, and that we still do have Robbie Fabry. So that could easily be a 75 just out of him. So for the rest of the roster, they have 200 to play with. It's I think I'm sadly going to take the over. I'm seeing a lot of, defensive defensemen coming in here, and I think we're going to be trying to block shots as much as possible. Some of them aren't young anymore. You've got David Perron.
There were only 17 teams under 275 last season.
Yeah, it's real tough. If we're trying to install this defensive mindset too, and then you've got an aging Reimer in there as well. Reimer pulls a groin, is out 10, 15 games. Suddenly that adds on there too. I think I'm going to take the over, sadly. I still think injuries are going to happen.
I'm with you on the over, and part of it is because at first I was thinking under. I was hoping it would keep trending downward with not having so many, kind of aging players. But then I combat my own argument by thinking with these younger guys, I feel like can get pretty excited with, blocking shots and really just trying to earn their spot with how competitive this roster is from line 1 to 4. Like everyone is competing for every spot. It seems like. I think you're going to get injuries. I think with the age and the passion, I feel like it's going to come with it. and especially since you brought up like the block shots. Yeah, sadly,
Bertuzzi broke his wrist. We had
Yeah.
broken kneecaps.
Yeah.
Rasmussen broke his kneecap.
I I would say barely. Is there a barely over
Sure. I
option?
mean,
I'll
one game is barely over.
sure. I don't think it's going to be up there close to what we were last year, but you picked a good spot at 275 where I'm not quite comfortable picking the under. I would pick a little over. Somewhere between 275 and 300 would be my pick.
Well, I'll tell you, hopefully we're not the Montreal Canadiens who lost 600 man games to
Oh.
injury last season. They topped it off, followed by Columbus at 545. Those are the two highest man games lost to injury last season.
Yeah, that explains the Columbus season a bit more as well. That's
Plus
real
they have
tough.
to play in Ohio, so
Yeah. Yeah. What did you take on it?
I'm going to be optimistic and say the under, and only for a few reasons. I think Robbie Fabry will start the season this season. He should. He's healthy. He's healed and everything. Michael Rasmussen will start the season. I think that was a freak injury, breaking a kneecap. Now, I say it's a freak injury, and then Marco Kasper also broke his kneecap in the one NHL game that he played.
Yep.
We thought it was an injury from beforehand, and we talked to Daniela Bruce, we have her on the show every once in a while, and she said he broke his kneecap in that game.
This is what we get for playing so close to Ford Field. Dan Campbell chilling nearby.
Yeah.
and then you've got Tyler Bertuzzi breaking his wrist blocking a shot, and I believe Larkin also had a wrist injury. So it's like you said, age I think is a big thing. David Perron, it's possible he gets injured. He's older. Maybe Justin Holl gets a small injury. Maybe Ghost is getting a little bit older too, so maybe he gets an injury. But like you said, a defensive game requires more block shots. More block shots lead to more injury. The team is also supposed to be more physical this season. That's one thing, is they're supposed to be more aggressive. So with more hits can also lead to more injury. So I think 275 is a good bar. I'm still going to take the under, I think. Maybe I'm hoping it's 250 or less is what I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping we have a mostly healthy team, because I think to make the playoffs, we're going to need a mostly healthy team this season.
I'd agree with that. And the last little cherry on this that I'd like to add is that with so many young guys in our system, I'm not sure that they're ever going to try to play players through injury. So I think you would see someone that might not have to play the game that is injured and being like, okay, well, we're going to give Kasper a shot then. Like, if your hand's swelling up like this, I know you could play through it, but we're going to put Marco in.
We're going to put Edvinsson in. We're going to put Wallander in. We're going to put Johansson in. Yeah, there's depth now. We'll play Carter Mazer. We'll play whoever.
Yep.
That was one of my other fun over-unders was rookie appearances. Last on our show is like rookie appearances over under 4. And I think we all took the over, because there's so many guys
that can cycle in.
Absolutely. That can just come in and play 2-3 games if you need them to.
I think I'm taking the over in that one. I know that's a quick one, but yeah, over.
Well, I'm still convinced Greg has my sheet, because we are going to segue from what he said about the increased hits of the year. Because we're going to jump over to Mo Seider. This is the only one I'm pulling an individual stat, instead of just comparing him to the rest of the team. Comparing him to the league. Mo Seider was 24th in the league in hits at 207. Do we think that's going to continue to go? I believe it's going downward, right? I believe it was 217 the year before, Billy. I think that's what you said.
No, it was 157 as rookie, 207 as sophomore.
Okay, so it's gone up. So the question would be if you think it's going to go up or down, really. But we have his over-under at hits going into the year at 199.5. So do you think he's going to hit that 200 mark again, or do you think maybe it calms down with a little bit of that? He's kind of getting a little more experience. Maybe he's not being as aggressive. Or is this team, like you said, is this team getting harder hitting? If they're getting more aggressive, is that, which way do you think it's going?
Billy, I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
Okay. I took the under. I think that he had a tremendous season. I think playing physical was definitely part of it. I think it's going to continue to be part of his game. 157 is not a little, but 200 is a lot. And just to bring up some other names, like at the very top of the league with like 318 is Luke Shen. You got Radko Gudas at 312. And to get more towards like the numbers in the 200s, you got Connor Clifton. I'm trying to only bring up defensemen here as well. Jacob Trouba, Yanni Hakanpää out of Dallas. And when you look at their playing time at the same time, no one is really breaking beyond 230 and playing more than 20 minutes. Out of these players, I believe Seider had the second most time on ice, and I believe he was like 25th in the league in hitting. I think it's going to stay part of his game, but I just think that 207 number might just be an outlier in his career, because that's a lot with those names around him.
German steel bends, it does not break.
I want to take the over. I think this might be the one that we've gone over that me and Billy might disagree on. I want to take the over just because I feel like Seider is not only, I think he knows he can hit, but I think he's learned that he can hit at this level. He can absolutely use his body, and I think it's scaring people off. Like you go into the corner with rookie Mo Seider, and you learn a lesson. Now you go into the corner with Mo Seider, and you remember the lesson you've learned, and you're probably pulling up a bit. He doesn't just kind of rub you off. Like, he actually will completely send it. And I don't think I didn't expect that from most. I expected when I saw the skating and the puck moving, I kind of, I associate that with thinking of like a Lidstrom, where, he's going to use the pure defensive skill, offensive skill. This dude can hit. And I don't even want to see him hold back from it. I'll take your, hopefully he bends and doesn't break, but I would hate for that to lead to a cause of any sort of an injury. But the dude's also not scared. And I want to cite, was it the opener 2 years ago that we went to, Billy?
Yep.
And I think that he also showed it on TV where he was a rookie, man. And you see, was it Hedman?
Yep, it was Hedman.
It was Victor Hedman. He's kind of going back and forth between the whistles, takes the puck from him. I love this kid. I love that he's just not scared.
Sidney Crosby.
Yep.
Yes, like he's not scared on any level. Like he knows he belongs at this level, and he's not afraid of anyone. And I kind of hope I hope he has a similar year last year in terms of total hits. I would love to see him be known for that all around player, not just offensively, defensively, but that physical presence as well. What do you think?
Yeah, man, German Cronwall. That's what happens. And I will take the over on a couple conditions. One is, like you said, guys tried to hit Mo. Mo is an expert reverse hitter.
Oh yeah.
You come up and try to hit him, you're gonna land on your ass and you're gonna wonder what happened.
Yep.
So, but beyond that, like you said, a more defensive game, and I think he could get 20 hits in the games against Ottawa that we play alone, because Ottawa's gonna be a very angry team. And Mo, like you said, Mo doesn't take anything from anyone now. And he's learned that he doesn't have to, because he is bigger, he is stronger, and he doesn't care who you are. Your name means nothing to him. So I'm going to take over, maybe not by much. I mean, maybe around the same 207 that he had. The second highest on the team last season was Adam Ernie with 160. So Mo took him over almost 50 hits more than Adam Ernie. But I think that's part of his game, is just people are going, and being a defenseman, people are trying to get the puck from him, and he doesn't care. He's just going to lay you out. You're not going to remember what happened, and that's just his game. So I think with the style that Lalone has put in, and that's why he has more hits this season than he did under Blash in his first year, because of the style of game. So I'm going to take the over. What'd you say it was 199 and a half?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to say he's probably going to hit around the same 200 to 207 number.
Those are incredibly fair points. Almost swayed me. No.
All right. Next up, we are going to jump into some goaltending. Looking at Husso's total starts from last year, he hit 56. We put his over under for total starts going into this year at 55 and a half. So the real question is, we put it pretty much right where he was the year before, because we really just want to spark the question: are Reimer/Lyon going to be able to take more of the workload off of Husso this year?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I will take the under. I mean, Reimer, I believe Reimer's a starter. He was a starter forever. And before last season, he was very good. And he's been consistent almost his entire career. That Sharks team was a giant pile of flaming garbage. Even Erik Karlsson, who scored and we talked about this too, he scored like over 100 points, but he was still like a minus 26.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Which is, it's insane. And I hate plus minus, and it's never a stat that should ever be used to judge an individual player. But
we have a whole video on that.
we all know that Erik Karlsson sucks at defense.
Oh yeah.
If he could get a 0 defensively, like he's a pure goal scoring forward that you just happen to line up on the blue line. That's what's happening. So I would say that my hope is that Husso plays 46 to 50 games is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping he can play 10 less games this season, because if he can play 10 less games this season, there were a few reasons why he kind of fell. It was because injury. He had pneumonia. He
Yeah.
got injured. He didn't think he was going to come back and play. They told him he wasn't, and then they're like, "No, you got to come back and play." And his backups like sucked. Like, not sucked, but Hellberg wasn't great, and he was older. So I think if you could get him 10 less games, you can get him back to his Blues, his numbers that he played the season before with the Blues. So I'm going to take the under on that, and I think that's why you did pick up a solid veteran backup goalie in Reimer, is to give Husso more games back and lighten that load so he can bump up and play a better game.
Yeah, so
Billy?
so Steve did talk about it a little bit, in that, you know, becoming the starter is already a big challenge enough, but then when you also have him have to play that many games, there were only 11 goalies in the league that played more than 55 games, and many of those goalies were often more successful. I know you had someone like Jacob Markstrom in there. I believe Martin Jones was in there too. So, like, not everyone that plays that much is that great, but I completely agree with you. I think that number is 46 to 50. In his previous seasons, his rookie he played 15, second year was 38, this year was 56. That's huge. That's a very big jump. It's a lot of weight on his shoulders, and having two different options, because I personally at this point am just starting to believe that goalies are coin flips. I think paying a goalie 10 mil, you better know what you're getting. You better go get a Shesterkin. You better get Hellebuck, like the guys who have
You
just
better
been,
get playoff Bob.
yeah, playoff Bob for sure. But like, Lyon got him there. Lyon was
He absolutely did. Yeah.
the thing that they relied on to make the playoffs, to give Bob the opportunity. So again, if that's what we need to do, is to rely on a Reimer who started 41 games last season. I don't think we're going a full 50-50 split. I wouldn't anticipate that, but yeah, I think this is one of like the needs. As much as it's an over-under for us and a topic of conversation and fun to talk about, I think the team needs it. I think Husso needs it.
And even if you look at Reimer's numbers in 43 games played, and people will sour at the 8-9 save percentage, if you go back one season, he played 48 games and had a 9-1-1. So it's a bad season for Reimer. And I know people don't like Reimer for other issues, and it's understandable, but you got a solid backup. You got a guy who can take 40 games or like, you need him to take like 35 games in the season. So
Ideally.
you bring Reimer's numbers down, and his percentage goes up, his goals against should go up or should go down, and you take those games off of Husso's plate.
Yep. And the NHL is kind of moving to that, is similar to, I guess, like the NFL. They're moving to running back by committee. You're almost running to goalies by committee. Aiden Hill, no one knew who he was. He went off and almost won the Vezina just out of nowhere. Just decided, yep, I'm hot right now. This team is built, and we're gonna go do it. So maybe we hit a hot goalie this year.
All right, we're going to jump into a little bit of special teams talk. Now, with acquiring Debrincat, you're really hoping your power play takes a nice jump. And we have, I believe, we're going into rank for power play percentage in the league specifically. Last year, we were at 17th in the league. We bumped it up a little bit. We went with 15.5 in terms of ranking in the league. So I guess that would mean if you think it's going to improve, you would take the under.
Yeah,
because that would lower the rank technically, right? That, I remember we go down, and that's it's a little weird. So I guess
you want a number
better,
lower
how
than
about this?
15.
Yeah, better or worse? How about that? That's the
Okay. There you go. We're playing better or worse now.
Yeah, we're gonna play a game, one round of better or worse, with the rank being 15.5, knowing that they were ranked 17th last year, adding hopefully a high-end power play guy like Debrincat.
I'm going to take better. I'm going to take better than 17. So 21.1% of the power play last season, which got us 17. If you go up 2 spots to 15, that's the Minnesota Wild at 21.4. Penguins had, I mean, if you look at the guys in the 21 range, you go all the way up to number 13, New Jersey Devils at 21.88. Boston had a 22.22. Boston lost their like top defensive player on the entire team to retirement.
Yep.
So Bergeron's going to be a huge loss for the Boston Bruins. I would say, yeah, I'm going to take the better than, which would be the under, which, yeah, you're correct. That is confusing.
Yeah.
Because you got a Debrincat, you got a Sprong, you got a Costin, you got a Raymond, you've got Mo Seider, who I expect to score more this season as well, or at least get more points. So my power play percentage is gonna jump maybe by only 3 spots, but an improvement's an improvement because I think the last, not even just this last season, the season before, we had like one of the worst power plays. So I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, this feels like my home run swing for the under, for the better. When you, even if you go up to like spot number 10, it's still a 22.8. From spot number 10 to 17, it's 1.7%. That isn't that large when you start looking at other big gaps. You have Edmonton is the complete outlier at almost 33%. That is just magical. But like these other gaps that you find between roughly 7 or so teams, it's like 2.6%, 2 and 2, all the way down to the bottom if you keep going by 7. So the tightest group is that 10 to 17. And I feel like we did nothing but make this power play even better. A lot of the players that are young on this team got experience there. We're talking about Raymond being better. You got an absolute like powerhouse of a shot out of Debrincat on the side. I love Wallman's shot. I love Ghost quarterbacking power play #1 personally. It's something he's done well throughout his entire career. And if you start looking at like power play line #2, that's when you can start getting people like Rasmussen and Costin involved. You can get the net front. And if you have Perron on your second power play, like he's going to excel. So as much as you might be able to stop our top one, I feel extremely confident going into the second one that I can say I have not felt that level of confidence for the last, 6 years maybe? Back when it used to be kind of bouncing. Yeah, I think this is a home run swing. I could see us even moving up to breaking that 22.5%, pushing for a 10 spot. I think we made just 2 huge acquisitions that make it so much better.
All right, and then with the power play increasing, you could also see a big adjustment in the goal differential. Now, last year we finished with a -39, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, -39 last year goal differential. We are setting our goal differential over under at minus 10.5. And now that would put us, I believe I picked that would put us right around the teams that we would be competing with last year, where Ottawa and Washington were both at -10 to finish last season.
A little more insight into why we chose this number is that at the deadline, we were -10. We sold and we ended up going -29 after that. So the team absolutely hit the dumpster after that. You lost Hronek, you lost Sundqvist, you lost Bertuzzi. It kind of felt like the entire life was probably taken out of the locker room. If you watch that Larkin interview after Bert goes, that's tough. These are humans. I think a lot of fans kind of miss that sometimes and how much they can mean to the locker room. So that's why we chose that -10.5, is that there's only one team that didn't make the playoffs that had a positive goal differential last year. That's Calgary, and they were +8. It kind of feels like that is a very direct stat on whether you're going to make the playoffs or not. I do think I'm going to take the under. I think this team got a lot better. 29 goal difference in a season is big, but I still think that we're just that hair away from really solidifying and saying like we should be a playoff team.
Okay, so we're going under on -10.5. What about you, Greg?
So if we don't get blown out by the Buffalo Sabres in like 3 games, I think we'll be okay. Like you said, we made this team better offensively, like much better offensively. We made this team better defensively because we had a really, looking at what we had Seider and we had Wallman. We still have Ben Sherratt, and like that's a problem. But I'm the 10.5 is a good bar. I want that goal differential to be closer to 0.
Yep.
And of course everyone does. And I think with a Reimer who should be able to bounce back, with a 100% healthy Ville Husso who should get a lower workload, bringing in a Ghost in a hole, having Seider in year 3, picking up some more defensively sound forwards. I'm going to say, and I might just be overly optimistic, I'm going to maybe take us closer to a -2, a -3. I mean, the Penguins were a -2 last season. And I mean, that's damn close.
Yep.
So,
it really is.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take, I guess that would be the over. I'm going to take the over -10.5. Because I think that just if you can score more, which is the Red Wings had an anemic offense last season.
Yep.
Like absolutely anemic. And you made the point of like past the trade deadline losing someone like Bert. the bigger loss was Michael Rasmussen.
Yes.
Like, you lost Michael Rasmussen and your defense suffered and your offense suffered. And having him healthy all season, I think, is going to be a huge boost. So I'm going to take the over.
All right, we've only got a couple more. These ones are a little less statistic based, something to end a little bit easier here.
We got lightning round. Let's go.
Yeah. So this we're going to change the rules on this next one here again. Instead of over under, it's just going to be real simple. If you can't go right down the middle, if you can't say, stand as is, trade deadline comes, are you leaning more toward the likelihood of being a buyer or a seller? You can't stay in the middle.
Shit. I guess that depends on how we're doing toward the new year. I mean, I think Yzerman has shown that he bought in this off season, and you've got guys like the hard part is he buys guys in the off season that if we suck, they're easy to move.
Yes.
Yep.
Like you can move a ghost contract at 1 year at like $4.5 million for a bank. You can move David Perron in his last year if he's overperforming. God, I'm gonna say that this year we will not be sellers because I have enough confidence in this team to improve and to be pushing for that playoff spot. Because if you remember, like towards New Year, we were still pushing for a playoff spot. And then we got embarrassed in a couple games by the Sens, and that's not the reason he sold. Yzerman said from the beginning he's probably gonna be a seller, but I think that was the last year we were a seller. Because I think there are enough pieces in place now, and we improved more, I believe, than the teams around us that we don't have to sell this season and that we can keep the pieces.
Yeah, and you can make the argument with this team, we're not getting our ass kicked by Ottawa that weekend.
No, or we're kicking their ass. Like
exactly, yeah, physically. Exactly. It's a different team with a different feel come the trade deadline. Billy, what are you thinking? Would you lead more toward buyer or seller?
If you made me pick one, I'm gonna pick seller simply because of what Greg already mentioned in the players that we would have at that time. And I don't expect this team to be like the shoe-in for the playoffs. And I think a lot of it's going to determine on how Steve sees this team playing. We were in a playoff spot and Steve didn't have confidence in the team to still make the playoffs at that time. And if you watched them, you kind of saw the glimpses of it, like, oh, this was really good. And then you have like 2 really bad games. You're like, okay, so the team doesn't seem to be all quite there yet. And I think that if we're in the spot that I expect us to be, where you're playing meaningful games of hockey in the last month, Steve has never just let people go for nothing. It feels like if you're on an expiring contract, he's willing to move you. I know Pia Suter would be someone that didn't happen with, but if it opens the availability that if Soderblom's performing real well, but we have a healthy team and someone makes an offer that you can't refuse on, let's say like a David Perron, right? I see that if we're still just kind of like in the battle for a playoff spot, like we're maybe like number 3 on the list of like fighting up into a wild card, I could see him making that move, being offered something that he couldn't refuse. I don't see him going out and buying anything other than possibly a goalie. Let's say Husso's having a great year and the Reimer Lyon experiment isn't working out. I'm specifically looking at someone like Carter Hart out of Philly. Philly's going to want to trade him at the deadline. His price tag is going to be completely dependent on how he's performing. It could be something. Maybe we're both, okay? Maybe it's like we sell some, we buy others. Like it feels like it could be anything, but if you made me pick, I think you're going to see someone like Prawn or Ghost get traded for, again, something that we're going to be surprised that we get back and be happy with.
All right, let's clean it up with a real easy one. Last year, I believe the Wings only had 1 All-Star. Red Wings All-Stars this year, 1.5. Do we find a second one that makes their way into the All-Star game?
It's going to be tough to say under with how I expect Debrincat to go. If Debrincat and Larkin are having this year, like you want to put them there together, but the biggest argument that I have back on myself is that this division is just absolutely loaded with talent. It's going to be so tough to get the second player on there, which then brings up the argument it could just be Mo. Like maybe you're looking at the wrong thing trying to predict a forward, and maybe Mo Seider has a tremendous year and finds his way there.
I agree. I think you're looking at the wrong thing trying to pick forward. I'm taking the over. I'm taking 2. It's going to be Dylan Larkin and Mo Seider. Lock it in.
I'm going to take the under because the media loves Toronto too much. That's my only thing, is that they love Toronto too much. I think they're also, like they did last year, they loved Ottawa too much. I was not high on Ottawa from the beginning, and they'll say, "Oh, the injuries ruined us." But you like Josh Norris, sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the under, only because I think they're also going to give way too much love to Buffalo this season, and they're probably going to have to shoehorn Tage Thompson and Owen Power or Rasmus Dahlin in, and then they're going to absolutely get like Matthews and Marner in, or Matthews and Nylander in his last year in Toronto in. And I think if it was a more even playing field with like people that the NHL try to focus on, then we would probably have two, in probably Debrincat or Larkin, or Debrincat and Seider, or whoever they wanted to send, Larkin and Seider. But I'm going to take the under, only because of how I know NHL sucks at marketing, and how they love certain players to death, or certain teams to death, and they want to give them more exposure.
Gosh, our marketing in this league is so bad.
It's the worst. The worst out of all professional sports. And I'm in marketing, and I will yell free marketing tips to them, and they'll never listen.
Greg, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope to be able to do it again soon. If you want to tell them where, anybody wants to be able to listen to Greg talk some more about Red Wing hockey, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Me, Ryan, and Tyler. Well, sometimes Tyler. You can find us on all major podcast platforms, the Grindline Podcast. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Amazon Music, we're everywhere. We're also on YouTube. We are mostly on Twitter or X, or whatever you want to call it, at GrindlinePod. I run the account. I am also at Bringing the Wing on X or Twitter or whatever. But we post once a week. During the season, I will drop little kind of episodes in between if there's any news. But yeah, that's where you can find us. Like I said, we post weekly, and we're part of the Hockey Podcast Network. So
sounds great. Again, thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, Greg. We'll see you guys in the comments. See you guys in the next one.
He even did the thumbs up. He knows it.